This is a butternut squash that's been growing in my garden for the past 4 months, and today I will show you how to harvest it like a pro. Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we are diving into the world of butternut squash and mastering the art of harvesting them like a pro, together with some tips on how you can grow your own. Here's how you can tell when your butternut squash is ready. We're looking at the colors first. The color of the vine and the color of the stem that directly connects to your butternut squash. On the actual butternut squash itself, we are looking for a deep uniform tan color. The color of the stem should be a bit lighter than the color of the main stem. It must be going towards a cork color. So what you want to do is, using your sharp tool, you just cut a few centimeters away from the actual squash. Now if you look at that, it's kind of dirty because it's been sitting in the soil for so long, but there's no worries about that. If you're looking at the back of it, the bottom of the squash should be dry like this. Now that's our first butternut squash for the season, and let's go look for some more. Unlike other vegetables, the size of the butternut squash doesn't really mean that it's ready for harvest. Let's make a bit of a comparison between these two. The smaller one is still a bit green. The color is not yet the tan color that we are looking for. However, with the bigger one, the color is a bit darker, almost the color of your harvesting basket. The color of the stem is also a bit lighter than the color of the main stem. So in this case, we are choosing the bigger one, not because of the size, but because of the colors that we've identified. So we're going to use our sharp tool to cut it, still a few centimeters away from the actual squash. And there we have it. When you're cutting, be careful not to damage the rest of the vine or your squash in your process. As you can see, the butternut squash color, it's more tan than the other one. Don't mind the dirt. As you can see, the bottom of it is also dry. Now in my garden during this season, I've been having more ants than usual. So I've had to cover up some of the butternut squash in the places where I had identified that there was an ant's nest nearby. So this is one of the squash that is covered. The material that I use, it's biodegradable, so it's already falling apart. So this squash is looking good. The color is more tan, and the color of the stem is also more brown than the color of the vine. So I'm gonna cut it. There we go. Nice and full. The skin is firm to the touch. This part of the video is where I share tips on how to grow butternut squash from seed, but I didn't grow this one. It grew itself on my compost pile. I found it thriving unbothered next to my compost bin. I had told myself that I wouldn't grow any plants with vines until I had built a trellis, but it looked so lush and healthy, and I decided to transplant it here. And yes, it did take over in a good way though, because today we have this many butternut squash to harvest. To avoid dumpster diving for your butternut squash plants, here's what you need to do. You start your seeds indoors about 3 to 4 weeks before your last frost date. You must use a good quality potting soil and plant the seeds about half a centimeter deep. You keep the soil evenly moist and warm. Butternut squash seeds need a soil temperature of about 21 to 35 degrees Celsius for them to germinate. For this, you can use a heating mat, or you can simply put them on a windowsill that gets full sun. When your seedlings have 3 or more leaves, transplant them into individual pots, and you need to water your seedlings regularly and fertilize once a month with a balanced fertilizer. You will then choose a sunny, well-drained spot in your garden, because butternut squash plants need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day. And finally, when your weather warms up and there's no longer a risk of frost, you can transplant your butternut squash plants into your garden. You water your plants deeply at least once a week, preferably in the morning. As your plant grows, you might consider building a trellis for it. Otherwise, if you don't, it will still grow fine, just like mine over here. As your plant grows bigger and thicker, you need to be on the lookout for aphids and squash bugs. As you can see with this one over here, it's been eaten by squash bugs and there's quite a number of holes in it. You can consider using natural pest controls like neem oil or your insecticidal soap. Your butternut squash should typically be ready between 80 to 100 days, depending on your weather and the variety of the squash that you're growing. In this garden, here we are 4 months later. Hello, ladybug. Now I had to put on my boots for this part of the harvest because the squash leaves are very rough and very itchy. So now I'll be walking into the thick of it. But before I go there, let me quickly show you what I meant about what to look out for to see if your butternut squash is ready for harvest. Now the colors, as you can see, this one, it's still very green. The squash itself is very green and the stem is very green. Here you can see the stem is almost greener than the vine itself. Like I said before, the size of the squash doesn't really matter. As you can see, this one is quite big, but it's still not ready. Here's another one, completely devoured by the bugs. But hopefully there's still some edible parts of it. so I'll keep it. Look at what I have so far. So awesome. As I walk back into the jungle. On this part of the garden, the squash vines are quite thick. This is what I didn't want initially when I thought of growing plants with vines, because they get so thick and they take over and cover the whole garden. Now I'm just trying to find where I can safely put my foot. There's another squash, somewhere in between the vines. Okay, so the bugs decided to eat through this one. It's already starting to decompose. I'm just going to remove it from the vine, just so that it doesn't transfer back any bacteria into the bigger vine. I will clean this up when I do my garden weeding, and I'll pop it into the compost bin. In part 2 of this video, we will talk about how to preserve your butternut squash, the fascinating process of curing your butternut squash, ensuring that your harvest lasts for months to come, and that it stays delicious, fresh, and sweet as it should. It's a wrap for today. Thanks for tagging along on our butternut squash adventure. Remember, whether you're a seasoned gardener or just getting started, there's nothing quite like the satisfaction of harvesting your own veggies. I really appreciate you for watching this video. Thank you. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Have yourself a wonderful day.